Hi, everybody. Welcome to Revitalize Meets, where I get the opportunity to meet global entrepreneurs, business connections from across the global network community. And today comes a great pleasure, no, a privilege to meet this gentleman properly for the first time in many years. Our paths are crossed, but never had the chance to really meet properly to discuss the power of networking. Can you please welcome with us today the author, trainer, extraordinaire networking man himself, Mr. Stefan Thomas. Stefan, how are you today?
I'm better now, having heard that introduction. I feel properly important now. We're recording this on a Monday morning, and how good is that to bolster me? Thank you, Lee. I'm absolutely flattered to be asked to come here and talk to your audience as well. So, yeah, thank you for that introduction. That really lifted me up.
We need that on a Monday. Coffee and a bit of an introduction. I could do it every week for you. We can talk about that afterwards if you want to. Just a quick phone call in the morning. Leave, right, go for your introduction. That just sets me up for the week. It's great to catch up with you because we've spoken to each other virtually, but we never got the chance to meet up with each other last November. And then it's a great chance to catch up with you now because we're in the same industry of networking and business development and really helping people connect the dots. Could we start this morning by just letting everybody who's watching and listening, just a little bit about your business journey, where you've been and where you are and where you're heading to, if you don't mind?
No, not at all. Stop me when I've been going for like 2.5 hours. People love to talk about themselves, don't they? The business journey started in 1983. I got my very first job in a shoe shop. I wanted to go on holiday, and my parents were happy for me to go on holiday and were happy for me to pay for it. So I got my first job 1983 in a shoe shop. And the weird thing is, I'm still using a load of those lessons in the shoe shop that I learned in the shoe shop back in those days, still using them today. So as well as the 99p an hour, went up to £1.10 an hour, as well as that, I've got lessons from that I'm using to this day. I stayed working in shops until 1987. 1988, I got my first job as an estate agent, and stayed in that career for just under 20 years. Left estate agency in 2007. Again, selling houses for all those years, building rapport with people who wanted to sell houses, building rapport with people who wanted to buy shoes, building rapport with people who wanted to sell houses. I believe that put me in really good stead for what I did next. And what I did next when I left the estate agency was I launched a small local magazine. I live in a small town called Witney in Oxfordshire, and I launched a little community magazine, completely ignoring the fact that cold calling and cold selling actually isn't my skill and I don't really like it. But I'd made myself a job cold calling advertising 7 days a week, to keep the magazine afloat. The magazine didn't last, but what lasted was that in order to sell the magazine, I needed to know the local business community. In order to know the local business community, I already knew about these things called networking events. So I started going to more and more networking events. The magazine went by the wayside quite quickly, and I started getting the reputation of knowing how to use networking events. So the business evolved from running a magazine to writing articles for other people. Writing has always been one of my sort of natural skills, but I was being asked more and more to talk about networking and to talk about how to make it work. I was making quite a lot of sales in networking, and then started speaking about it, started talking about it at networking events. People were asking me to be the one who stands up at networking events, to talk about networking. So I did that. And then I discovered business shows. And in the very early days of me discovering that, I'm based here in Oxfordshire. There was this guy based up in the Northeast called Andrew Charlton, who was running business shows. So I took myself up to Newcastle to speak at a networking event where Andrew Charlton was going to be, so that he could see me speak. And he put me on to speak at a load of his business shows. God, that was 2010, 2011, something like that. And in 2012, as a direct result of all of that happening, I'd been asked to speak at the Business Startup Show at Excel in London, and the publishers of the Dummies series of books were there. We actually ended up having dinner that night, and 6 weeks later they asked me to write the book, and then life has sped up a bit since then. I've written another couple of books, and I speak quite a lot, and I get involved in networking communities as you do. So in 3 or 4 minutes where I didn't stop to breathe, from 1983 until, where are we now, 2022, that's me. I'm still in touch with some of the people from the shoe shop. I'm still in touch with a load of my managers and colleagues from estate agency over the years. I went out and had coffee with my boss from 1999 quite recently to say thank you to him, because he taught me stuff in the estate agency that I now get paid to deliver on stage. And we, just before you press record, we were talking about paying it forward. That guy was paying it forward without ever knowing. So yeah, that's my career so far.
It's such a vibrant journey, and where it starts from 99 pence an hour. I think I was quite shocked with that, to £1.20 an hour. But where we start from and who we remember from back then is so important. We spoke about that before joining up today, really, and opening up the discussion. And, you know, it's having those bridges that you've formed and built over the years that you never forget who's been part of that journey, where unfortunately sometimes that does happen. People forget about who's actually helped you and give that helping hand upwards to where you want to be, and give you some of the knowledge to start off with. You know, it's nice to be able to go back and get that from there. So really well done on such a journey which has opened up many doors for you. And, you know, if you hadn't gone to that event, you hadn't spoken at that event, would the book ever have happened?
Because that's the thing. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. These are the stuff that I get excited about. You know, these Y-shaped decisions that we all make. Really recently, at the end of last summer, I was sat here. It was a day a bit like today in Oxfordshire. It's raining outside at the moment. Last summer, I was meant to be going to a networking event. I sat here and thought, can I be bothered? I've got to get dressed properly, change the shorts that I'm wearing into proper trousers, go out of the house. Go out of the house. I know you've got Bermuda shorts on from the you know, and I did. I got up and went to this networking event in another town called Abingdon in Oxfordshire, organised by the wonderful Mike Foster and Ben Thompson. I went down to their networking event, and I met someone who I've gone on to partner with. We're doing a load of business together. I ended up going out for dinner with them and their team at Christmas. And that's another one. There's all of these things where, if I'd made the easy decision, I'm going to stay here where it's nice and warm, and not gone out to a networking event, where that wouldn't have happened. The event I went to in London, where I met the Wiley, the publishing house, the publishers of the Dummies series of books, and this is another part of our conversation, I think. Yes, had I not gone to that event that one time, but actually, because we sped up that journey into 3 minutes, it was the 7th year I'd been to that event. It was a 2-day event. It was twice a year. Excel one end of the year, Olympia the other end of the year. And it was the 7th year that I'd been there for the whole 2 days. At first, going and speaking where other speakers had cancelled. If I spotted one of the seminar areas and it said cancelled, I would go and ask the organisers, can I speak in that room? And then to be an actual proper speaker, from going to those events for 7 years, and that's the bit I can't do, ended up being there in the right place at the right time when the publishers were there and got to see me. So yeah, I like that. That sort of
it's
stuff.
It's very true. It's the right place at the right time, and I love that thought. We've all been there. Everybody's watching and listening. We've all been at that point. You go, will I go out today? Should I take my Bermuda shorts off and put my jeans and trousers on and go out there somewhere today? But when you make it happen, I mean, networking's called networking for a reason. You got to work at it to net what you're trying to to get out there, but that element of being at the right place at the right time, and all it takes is that one connection that literally might take 7 years. Get my fingers right on that one. 7 years, but it might take once, or it might take multiple times. But it's for people seeing you consistently. But it just takes that one opportunity that makes it all worthwhile where it happens on that side. So true. So very, very true. We talk about networking, right? And we talk about what we're doing literally every single day, bringing people together, connecting the dots, opening up doors of opportunity for various starting up business owners, well-established business directors and sales teams. What's been the biggest challenge for you in your business journey? When has it been a chance you've gone, oh, and you've pushed right through it and it's become a challenge that's turned into a big achievement for you? What's been your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge would be personal confidence.
Yeah.
Over the years, certainly, it's not something that I'm blessed with naturally. So, and this is really something that I hope your audience will really enjoy knowing. When I get up on stage and speak in front of people, that's me. And it's a slightly bigger version of me than the one you meet in real life. And to some extent, you and I are both on stage now. We're doing what we do, but I have the same confidence issues as anyone else. Is this going to work? When I put this on LinkedIn, is everyone going to laugh at me? I get those same thoughts that everyone else does. So personal confidence has been the big thing for me, pushing through that. 2018, I had a nervous breakdown. I've talked about that really quite openly as well. And it was coming out of the end of that when I realized that the cavalry weren't going to magically come over the hill, that once I came out of the end of that situation, if we ever get out of the end of those really, it was that realization that it was on me if I was going to make this succeed. So 2012, someone asked me to write the book. Then I wrote another book. Then I wrote another book. 2018, all of my inner demons crept up on me and I had the nervous breakdown. I'm not going to say I pushed through that because I had a load of help from the medical community and that sort of thing. That wasn't on me. Once we'd dealt with the crisis, what was on me was realizing that there wasn't really a cavalry. Some people had been really kind to me. But ultimately, if I was going to pull out of this, I was going to need to do it myself. So that's been the biggest challenge. Personal confidence along the way and dragging myself out of that eventually, to the extent that with what I'm doing now, I can feel the confidence when I pick up the phone and talk to people about it. I can feel the confidence when I phone someone up and say, look, I'm doing this. I think it will be really useful to you. Would you like to be part of it? Selling to people. But that's not something that actually came naturally along the way to me. So yeah, personal confidence would be the biggest hurdle, I reckon, along the way.
That's a big, interesting fact that you shared on that one. And thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate you sharing that time of your life, in other words, as well. And when that happens, we all get to a stage where it just literally pulls us down. And then it is 100% agreeing with yourself, Stefan. It's down to you to literally, nobody else is going to change it except yourself. Only you will make the difference. It's around you. And yeah, you can circle around you a connection support network, a link up that can be there, but only you can keep the momentum moving forward. You've got to be able to push it forward as best you can. And it's a bit like the analogy I like to use is like go to the gym. You know, it's going to be not comfortable to start with, but if you keep going at it and keep training at it, you get better at it, you get stronger at it, and you got to be able to maintain that as well. But you also have some learnings in that as well. Some areas that you think, well, I'll pull that out of the duffel bag when I need it at some point. And we all go through our stages in our life that we've all been there, especially over the last few years, of adapting ourselves to work in our little boxes, to being the thought of worrying of going out there and having that connection that would affect. So, but it's a good point you mentioned. It's down to you. You can make it happen. You can make it count, and you can make a big difference. But you've literally got to go out and think, well, I've got to drag it out and I've got to push forward as best that I can. So, yeah.
and having a network that I've developed over the years, I never realized how valuable that was going to be.
Yes.
So in March 2020, when we all first heard of this thing called a pandemic and lockdown became an everyday word, when I was having my own challenges in 2018, as I came out of that, I was able to get in touch with some of the people in my network who were kind enough to help me. And then in March 2020, when all of a sudden you would have faced exactly the same, face-to-face events had been where I made all of my money, and all of a sudden we weren't allowed to do those. But I was able to pull on my network again and start picking up the phone to people and saying, I've got this idea. We could do this for your business. We could do that. So along the way, my network and my experience have been the two constants. Do you know what? I've never talked about it in that respect, but the network and the experience that I've built up over the years, I guess those are the two things which I carry around with me all the time, which are more valuable than anything else in the business life, really.
I think it's so interesting as well that many people think of networking, going out there, selling to the room, but they forget the other side of it is actually the support structure, the advice, the help, the assistance. Being that lending ear is actually very valuable in what we're offering. And people, do you think as well that people forget about that so much? They're just looking at the sale. They're not looking at everything else that goes with it.
It's such a much bigger picture than the sale, because that's if you focus on the £20 notes above people's heads and go to networking, do you know what? You'll get some success. But it's not the success you could get if you put that to the back of your mind and looked at the bigger opportunity. The bigger opportunity. Wiley, the publishers who were in the room with me at the British Startup Show, the Great British Business Show, or the Business Startup Show, it used to be called. I could have tried to sell something to them. And that's the thing. I could have said, look, I do training and I do speaking. Would you like some? And they would have said no. And instead we went out for dinner and got to know each other. And they said, have you ever thought of writing a book? And no, I hadn't. But then we ended up writing the book. The wonderful Chris J, who I met at the Business Networking Show in Wolverhampton in 2015, 2016. And I didn't try and sell anything to him. And Chris is an extraordinarily valuable director of my business now. And he's the guy, when I say, I've got a new shiny thing, Chris says, yeah, slow down. Why do you need the new shiny thing? But we never tried to sell anything to each other. And I've got so many of that. I could go on and on and on. I met my wife, for God's sake, through someone who was originally a business contact, and got married to Sharon last August. All of these bigger pictures that go out there. But if you're only focused, let's just imagine, when was it? Early December last year, when I actually met you face to face. And so far, neither of us have tried to sell anything to each other. And we're sat here and you're giving me the absolute privilege of giving me a little bit of access to your audience by letting me speak to them. But imagine how the conversation would have been different if I'd come bowling straight up to you and said, do you want to buy some consultancy? No, move on to the next person. People need to understand that your network has value far above what you can sell to the other people in the room.
Such a big point. I mean, I've been in many networks in the past, and it's true. Like last year when we met up, it was sort of like a passing conversation, where a chance to catch up, put something in the diary. Let's have a conversation. Let's open up even further. But we've all been there where you've walked in somewhere, even a face-to-face event, someone's got a business card and they thrust it in front of you, or they do a 1 minute and they just pitch straight at you. But it's the wealth of the network you have around you that are supporting you is got the biggest value to everybody. But many people don't look at it that way. So it's look at the long-term opportunity versus the short-term gain. That's available. It's a long-term opportunity that's available to you. Yeah.
And because I've got a sneak preview of what we're going on to talk about, the really interesting thing about that is that actually enables you to sensibly and successfully sell to the other people around you. And that's the bit that people don't get.
Correct.
What you and I are talking about isn't just being fluffy and nice to everyone. This stuff actually leads to business success if people get it right and if people have a tiny bit of patience and don't just go out there and sell. So yeah, it all joins up for me in some really lovely ways.
A process, a system, and keeping consistent with what you're looking to do, with the objectives that you want to achieve as well, I think is one of the big things that's in there. So talking about that, Stefan, so as always with every Revitalize meeting in conversation with, I always like to ask my guests a how-to, a top 3 golden nugget treasure trove tips that you can offer as well. And what we're chatting about today is the how to develop and engage and maintain your pipeline in networking, which is what you just touched on there. Many people forget about, you're actually building a pipeline of great relations and a pipeline that will understand what you do so they can talk with confidence to other people about who you are and what you do. What's your top tips? What's your thoughts on a pipeline? Is it something manageable? Is it something that's in the ether that we visualize? What's your thoughts on a pipeline for networking?
It's so really important. So when I've met someone at a networking event, I try my hardest to keep in touch with them. And let's just broaden that because it's 2022. I might have met them on LinkedIn. Let's talk about a mutual friend, Brent Edwards, who's based over in Toronto. I've never actually met Brent. I've not been to Toronto yet. He's not been to England yet. I've not done that bit, but since connecting with him, we've kept in touch. After meeting the guy who went on to become my business partner, we kept in touch. And after meeting the people who are now buying services from me, after we first met or connected, we kept in touch along the way. So they become part of my network. I often talk about my network in sort of concentric circles. After you've met someone for the first time, they're sort of out here. Lee Foster and Steph Thomas became aware of each other a couple of years ago, but we didn't really know each other. We're sort of, we're there on each other's networks. We know that person exists. What then happens is it's down to us to put in the effort to help those people move closer and closer to us. And that's what a load of people don't do. And the way that I do that is I put very significant effort, I believe, into keeping in touch with people by watching what they're up to, looking at what they're doing on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and so on, being genuinely interested in it. Because sometimes then what happens is that people get a message from me and I'll say, I've just seen this post where someone's looking to buy this, and I know that's pretty much what you do, so I've just tagged you in it. Or, you should go and comment on this post, whatever it happens to be. I genuinely keep in touch with other people and watch what they're doing and watch what they're up to and keep in touch. I then make sure that as well as doing that, I make sure people understand what I do. So I guess if we're talking about a system, I'm constantly going to events and connecting with people, or doing a podcast and a YouTube with Lee, which will introduce some of your folk into my network. They'll now know that I exist. Once we've done that, we put the effort in to help people move closer to us as well. And then I put out there every so often what it is that I do, how my business makes money. Along the way, I put out a ton of useful content. I talk about networking and networking skills freely. People get value from that, so they tend to interact. And then I started working shops. I started working in fashion shoe shops. And one of the things that you'll notice if you ever go into a fashion shop is that somewhere on the ceiling, there's my banner, but somewhere on the ceiling, it'll say pay here. And the thing that I'm really not scared of doing ever is wheeling out the till, wheeling out the pay here sign every so often. But one of the things, when I worked in a shoe shop, we were taught to spot who was getting ready to buy a pair of shoes. If they were hovering or they were holding a shoe or showing it to their wife, whatever it happened to be, we would then go in and start talking to them. In 2022, I spot buying signals. They were called buying signals. I spot buying signals in places like LinkedIn. So if I'm putting out a ton of useful information and spotting that the same person comments it on it all the time. And then I very occasionally, but regularly, put something out saying about what I do, and the same person expresses interest. I don't have any hesitation, shame, embarrassment about probably picking up the phone to them or making sure that I'm in the same networking event as them and actually saying, I reckon what I'm doing would be useful for you. Would you like to have a chat about it? So I know that wasn't free. That was a rubbish attempt at free things.
That's all right.
It's going out there and meeting people, keeping those relationships alive. Meeting new people is important. Keeping the existing relationships alive is important. And because we're in business, showing people the till is really important as well. And I think people fall down at various stages in that. Loads of people don't go to networking events. I believe that's a mistake. People don't go out there to events where they could meet new people. I believe that's a mistake. Loads of the people who do think that a networking event is some sort of dispensing machine where they walk in, they pay their money to be there and business comes out. It doesn't work like that. So people fall down at that point. Keeping in touch with the people, with no expectation of reward, actually, with no expectation that people are going to buy, that's where the magic happens. And then being confident enough, if that's the right word, I've used it a few times this morning, to occasionally talk to people about what you do when you think they're the right fit. That's somewhere else where people, sometimes their confidence bottoms out as well. So not sure if that's a system, but it works very well for me.
I think it's well, again, another interesting fact on that one. It's many people just, and I mean, this is not going to flufferize it up, right? It's that they'll go networking for a checkbox exercise. Many people more than ever before now are starting to embrace online and offline together. So they're starting to find that they're doing that online is actually transferring to an offline relationship. Whereas when they meet them for the first time, they can then engage in a little bit that extra, it's a layer of conversation again. And then it starts to build up that rapport. And then what usually happens, as we both find out, is that they will introduce you to somebody else. That's another connect the dot. We're starting to engage our pipeline even further again. So remember where it came from and where it's head to. And relationships is so key in doing that. And it's what I meant early on there about not using networks as a checkbox exercise. It's actually a tool for your business and to maintain and grow your sort of circle of network. I mean, we've got thousands of connections on LinkedIn. We've got many followers on Instagram and many connections on Facebook. But you pick which one works best for you. I predominantly love LinkedIn because it is a naturally business relationship networking tool that should be used online more regularly. I mean, I've done voice notes this morning. I've done little video thank yous to people, engaging with people on these different types of tools. But you are so right. It's actually to maintain and to expand that pipeline, you've got to take a vested interest in not just thinking they're the wrong person for you, is actually look past their front cover and think, okay, you've got a wealth of people I want to speak to, but it might take some time to get to know you properly and for you to get to know me. And I think that's a really important fact of the matter now. It's time. It's got to take time.
It is. And just as importantly as time is the immersion of that. If we never speak, if we never get in touch with each other, it's going to take a whole lot longer for us to get to know each other than if I'm constantly on your LinkedIn posts and that sort of thing. This bit about immersion, people sometimes ask me, how long is it going to take before it works? And it's how much effort are you putting into the relationships yourself? That's the real answer to the question. Because let's take another mutual friend, Andrew Charlton of Hashtag Events. Now, I speak to Andrew several times a week. So we know each other. I know that he's had COVID. I know that his fences blew over at the weekend. We know each other as people, as well as the fact that he runs brilliant events and I speak at most of his events as well. That immersion means that if I've got an idea, I'm able to pick up the phone and say, look, I'm thinking of running this event down here in Oxford. I speak, I don't particularly run events. You run events, you don't speak. Is it worth us having that conversation? And then we can have an easy business conversation. I've recently done business with someone who I've known for about 13 years. And because I know him and know what him and his wife are trying to achieve at the moment, I was able to put in a phone call and say, look, Mike, this is what you've told me about what you're trying to do. This is what I'm trying to do. I believe that what I'm trying to do might help what you're trying to do. And he bought from me. It's not that immersion, those building those relationships, that leads to you being able to have really easy sales conversations with people in the end as well, because you know them and they trust you.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Trust is a big one. So, and I've said this to many people as well, when you start to grow and develop your pipeline, trust comes into place. And one question I always put to anybody is, why should anybody promote you if they don't know you? Why should anybody introduce you to somebody else if they don't know who you are? And why should anybody speak to somebody about your business if they don't even know what you do? But it's at that point of fact, why should it matter to anybody about you if you're not willing to put the time in to develop that relationship with somebody? But also, once you developed it, I feel in networking, especially now, and I'll share this open for you, Stefan, is that people will move from network to network to network and think, well, I'm not getting the traction I expected to get. What's your thoughts on that one?
I've got an illustration somewhere, which I really ought to wheel out, of a guy who is, digging and digging and digging, and then he decides he's not going anywhere and goes and digs another hole and digs another hole, and never works out that actually on his first hole he was only ever 6 inches away from the pot of gold. But instead of that, he decides to go and put all of the effort into starting a new hole somewhere else. People see a downside that I simply don't see in talking to other business people. So people spend a lot of effort into trying to surround themselves with the right people. And I was involved in for networking for a long time. That's no secret. And people would often say to me, yeah, I went along and didn't meet the right sort of people. And then, how did you get to write the book, Stefan? I said, well, at actually a for networking event, to be honest. And I've worked with some, big companies, Lloyds Bank and BT and people like that. People were putting all of their effort into going, there's a room over there which has got a much better set of people in it. I'm going to go there instead. That they were literally walking past massive opportunities right in front of them. For some reason, people seem to put more value on the people that are just out of their reach than the people who are right there. And we never know where those conversations are going to lead to. Mike, who I've just mentioned in another conversation, Mike is a forensic accountant based in the Midlands. Is different to an actual accountant, but back in the day, Mike was on the committee for the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and he got onto the committee that was organising the annual conference, and they booked me to speak and they paid me. And the same networking event, people were telling me that there weren't the right people in the room. And if they'd just persevered, if they'd just been there, they would have got this huge opportunity that was presented to me. Other people might have got it as well, but for some reason they decided, I'm going to go and dig over there instead. And I put effort into the people that I've got around me. And the weird thing is that the more I do of that, the more they lead me to the people who are over there anyway, without me having to go and dig another hole.
That's right. And that's a great analogy to use. It's that digging and digging and digging, and you go, now I'm going to move to the next one, move forward on that one, and it's literally 6 inches away from an opportunity or a pot of gold that is just at your fingertips that goes away. And the other side of the coin is a bit like what you've said before. It took 7 years, right? It took that one visibility to be there, not selling to the room, just talking what you're passionate about. And somebody goes, right, let's organize a meal with this gentleman. And it just leads onto an opportunity. And I think as well, it's the education of each other. And then it's also making sure you're asking the right questions at the right time which will in turn develop new opportunities that are there for you. So I think
and that's something to really be
yeah.
clear about, that if one other person in the world who does what you do has made success out of networking, then just possibly, if it's not working for you, it might well be your approach and not networking itself that's the problem. And I've always been, I guess it's one of the very few strengths that I'll credit myself with. I've always been very self-aware of, I'm not very good at that, so how do I get better at that? How do I learn to get a bit better at it? Rather than thinking, I tried that, it didn't work, I'm never ever going to do it again. It must be the thing that doesn't work. I can't play the piano. That's not the piano's fault. I didn't know when I started going networking how to make sales initially. So I modeled other people. I watched what they were doing. I copied them and got better at it along the way. It is, as well as turning up relentlessly, constantly working on your approach to it. I launched a new service in October of last year, and at first I wasn't very good about talking about that service to people. I've got better at it over the last few months because I've done some of it. I've done quite a lot of it, rather. Going to networking in the early days, I really wasn't good at delivering my 60 seconds. Going to 4 or 5 networking events a week, I got pretty good at it in quite a short space of time by listening to the feedback. So turning up is one thing, doing all of the right things, but also listening and understanding if you're not getting it quite right and you could change your approach. That's been a change in my approach. Listening to other people has been a winning formula for me along the way.
That's a great one as well. It's actually the learnings afterwards. It's actually self-reflecting. We're moving on to something quite nicely joined up there, by the way, Stefan. But it's like that self-reflection piece. When I was in sales for many years, 30 years plus, and when I was in the travel industry, when I was on the road with my sales team, it was actually, I wanted to view them actually presenting to the teams they were talking to, doing the training, and then afterwards come away and go, what could you have done differently? What could you have done better? And we looked at little finer points, right? Try that in the next one that we go to. And it made that impact again. Wow, okay, it's opened up an opportunity. Or there's somebody inquiring about a product or a tour they want to take. Great, now you've got that opportunity. You've gifted them something back from it. So when you go to networking, your 1 minute introduction might not be right. But if you actively listen to what's going on around the room, virtually and in person, you can pick up some pointers. And then it's actually putting them into place that makes a big difference. Great point on that one, Stefan. Thanks for sharing that. And it moves swiftly on.
Do you play Wordle, by the way?
Sorry, what's that?
Do you do Wordle yet?
No, not Wordle. What's Wordle?
Okay, so Wordle is one of those things which no one had heard of it 6 weeks ago, and now a lot of people are doing it. It's an internet word game. It was described to me as Scrabble for people who've got a short attention span, because it takes less than 5 minutes a day. But Wordle, you have to guess the right word of the day. Every day is a word. There is a 5-letter word, and you have to guess what the 5-letter word is. And you have so many attempts to get there. And every time you guess a word, it tells you which of the letters in that word are right, and whether they're the right letter in the right place or the right letter but out of order. And this morning, I got it in 3 attempts, but my first 2 attempts were completely wrong. None of the letters in my first 2 attempts were in it, but getting it wrong twice led me to getting it right. You can see where I'm going with this now. Yeah. So sometimes just being self-aware enough to say, I'm going to do that. Okay, I completely messed that up. And not retreating into yourself and coming back out and trying another word. Networking and networking events have allowed me to massively speed up that process, so that when I first delivered my 60 seconds, rubbish, but I went to a lot of networking events and tried to get it better and better and better. If I'd only been to one every 6 months, I'd have never got any better. If I'd believed it was the people in the room who were in the wrong, I'd have never got any better. Getting things wrong a couple of times can often lead you to getting it right. And that's something else where networking has really helped me.
Yeah. Practice, and even more practice. And you'll get it at some point as well. You just it'll happen before you know it. Thanks very much, Stefan. Thanks for sharing that with us. And it moves swiftly on to the next part of it, which is self-reflection. We've touched on it slightly there about that sort of that element of learning from what you're doing and getting better at it and more efficient at it itself. I read a lot of books. I do a lot of self-reflection, more than ever before, every single day. Coming away from Zoom, switching everything off, and taking time out to decompress on the day and reflect on what's happened, where I am, and where I'm heading to, quite regularly. How do you self-reflect, and what's the book that you're reading at the moment?
The book that I'm reading at the moment is The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler. And it's actually a great book for anyone in business, and for any of us who are providing services. I think it's aimed at coaches, life coaches, business coaches, but there's an awful lot of lessons in it. The other thing which I do all the time is I watch Gary Vaynerchuk's stuff on YouTube. I watch a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk. I've been reading his books and following him for 14 years now. Yeah, 2008, I started following Gary Vaynerchuk. So as well as reading, I tend to try and watch YouTubes which will educate me or inspire me. And I walk. I walk at some point today. I will go for a walk around our local town just to look around. I'll probably go and find some trees and some wildlife somewhere. I'll walk around somewhere which has got a bit of wildlife, and I do that. It gives me time to think, really, and it's often when some of my best ideas come to me as well. So yeah, The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler. I mentioned it on an Instagram reel just yesterday. That's the book I'm reading right now. And for me, self-reflection is my walk-in time, where I decompress a little bit and just be out in nature or be around people a little bit and just allow that time to happen, really. And I do that every day.
It's a great routine, but also great discipline to be involved when you do it. I'm getting back into, I do my self-reflection through the day, but I'm getting back into my walking and jogging on the evening as well. And again, it's that, put the headphones on and just go, and literally just review where you've been and just enjoy what's around you, taking that moment or two to see what's around. So some great pointers there, Stefan. Thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it. And we talked briefly about Instagram. So for everybody who's watching and for listening today, how can they make contact with Stefan in regards to, we've talked about LinkedIn, but is any other way they can reach out to you and ask you a few questions? What's the best route of action to get in touch with yourself?
Yeah, LinkedIn. You're absolutely right. Go and search me on LinkedIn. I've got a very slightly unusual name, so I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm on Facebook. I'm still on Twitter as well. Wherever people are most comfortable with, go and find me there and get in touch with me. Again, with my name, it's not difficult to find me. But yeah, be really, really happy for people to connect with me. My LinkedIn feed is certainly, my attempts are to make it really useful to people in giving networking advice. My Instagram feed, I do quite a lot of reels, so sub 60-second videos on with little bits of networking advice. I do that whilst I'm out walking, actually. But yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, people will find me wherever they come and look for me.
Brilliant, Stefan. Thanks so much. And I highly recommend anybody to really tap into the knowledge that is Stefan Thomas. And if you do get the chance, check out, as we mentioned earlier, some of the hashtag events that are coming up across the country for you to tag along to. And you may even see myself and Stefan being there on stage, giving you a gift of knowledge of all of our experience from networking and development over the past many years. That's in there. So I'd say many on that one. Stefan, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it. It's a gift to welcome me along as a guest to the Revitalize Meets episodes.
I'm just flattered to be invited. I've really, really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope that some of your audience get something from it, because I appreciate their time in watching and listening to this. So I hope they take value from it as well. So thank you ever so much for inviting me along.
More than a pleasure, Stefan. More than a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening today to Revitalize Me. Stay tuned for more episodes coming up very, very soon, where I get the chance to meet with many global entrepreneurs and business network connections from across the global network community. As always, for myself and Stefan, stay safe, stay healthy. And as always, remember, keep connecting, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye for now.